Everyone. Today I'm going to discuss the matter of statute of limitations for tax debt collection. Now, many of you may not be aware of the fact that there is an expiration on tax debt collection. So, in this discussion, I'm going to provide you with some particulars so that you can be aware that there is a statute of limitations on tax debt collections, and you'd have a better idea how to deal with your tax situation if you have old tax debt that you've not been able to pay over the years. Let me first define what the statute of limitations is for you. Now, a statute is a law, and the statute of limitations is the time period that a person or a company has to bring action against you. And this means this is the time period that a person or a company can file a lawsuit against you for a debt, or they can try to obtain a judgment against you for a debt. Now, in regards to the statute of limitations for tax debt collection, you have different laws for federal and different laws for the state. In regards to your state, you would need to check your state's code to find out what the statute of limitations is for tax debt collections. Not all states conform with the federal tax law. I do know that California and New York are two of the states that do conform with the federal tax law. But in regards to the other states, again, you would need to check your state code to find out what their statute of limitations on tax debt collection is. Now, sometimes statute of limitations is referred to as SOL. And I think we all know the other meaning for SOL. But for the purposes of this discussion, when I refer to SOL, it's going to be in regards to the statute of limitations and not the other SOL unless I specifically say that. Now, speaking of the other SOL, for some of you out there who have been procrastinating about your tax debt or just thinking that it's going to go away, in this particular situation, you might be SOL or pretty close to being SOL, and I do mean the other SOL. So you want to try to deal with your tax situation and get it cleared up because it can be a problem down the line. So enough about that. Let's get on with the subject matter of the statute of limitations. So currently, there is a 10-year statute of limitations on tax debt collections from the date of assessment. Let me say that again. There is currently a 10-year statute of limitations on debt collections, tax debt collections, from the date of assessment. And what I mean from the date of assessment is that's from the date that the IRS assessed the additional tax to you. Let me give you an example. Let's say you filed a tax return in tax year 2000, but the IRS did not assess the tax until 2003. That means that the SOL period does not expire until 2013 because again, you're adding 10 years to the date that they assess the tax. Now, there are exceptions to this 10-year rule, as there are exceptions to every rule. And some of the exceptions in regards to the 10-year rule are as follows. One, if you agree to extend the 10-year period, then of course the statute of limitations period goes beyond 10 years. And there are also other ways that the IRS can find to extend the period as well. Two, if the IRS files a return for you, an SFR, substitute for return, the 10-year statute does not apply. Three, if you file a false or fraudulent return in hopes of evading taxes, the 10-year statute does not apply. And four, the 10-year statute does not apply in the case if a taxpayer files a return and omits a gross amount in excess of 25% of what they reported on the return. In this case, the statute of limitations is 6 years. So basically, if a person understates their income in excess of 25% of what was reported on the return, then the statute of limitations period is 6 years. Now, briefly, the IRS has 3 years to assess additional tax to you. That's why in most cases, it takes the IRS 2 to 3 years before they send you a letter. Most of the time, most people do not receive a letter the following year or a notice from the IRS the following year stating that they owe additional tax. Now, in some cases they do, but worst case scenario, it's usually, from my experience with my clients, it's been 2 to 3 years before the client will receive a notice. And then they'll ask the question, well, why are they just sending me this notice? Well, again, the IRS has 3 years to assess the tax, the additional tax. Now, within that 10-year period, don't think that it's going to be smooth sailing for you, because that's not necessarily going to be the case. You are still going to be receiving notices from the IRS, or in most cases, you will still be receiving notices from the IRS. And if they feel that you are in the position to pay, or if they feel that you are ignoring them, there are certain steps that they can take to try to get your attention, such as filing a wage garnishment against you, filing a lien against your property, levying your bank account. All of these things can be done with proper procedure from the IRS. Now, of course, they can't do any of these things without giving you notice. And whether or not you receive that notice, well, that's a different story. You could have moved, or you could have changed jobs, etc. But the IRS has a process that they need to go through before they start levying your bank account and garnishing your wages, etc. So now, once the SOL period has expired, this means that the tax debt is no longer collectible. But again, a 10-year period is quite a long time to be in a holding pattern, so to speak, whereas you can't pay anything on the taxes. And trust me, the IRS will try to find ways to collect the money that you owe. Now, of course, if you are just absolutely in no position to pay the tax, or you need time to pay the tax, extra time, and things like that, there are programs that the IRS offers, and I have made various videos in regards to those different programs, such as installment agreements, um, submitting and requesting an offer in compromise, or requesting to be put into currently not collectible status, C&C status. So those are options for those of you who are unable to pay your tax debt, or you can't pay the entire tax debt. But my advice to you would be not to ignore the notices that you receive. Try to work something out with the IRS. Because again, if you don't, various steps can be taken by the IRS to get your attention. So now let me talk about the statute of limitations on claiming refunds. Yes, there is a statute of limitations on claiming refunds, tax refunds as well. Now, in order to claim a refund, you must do it within a 3-year period from the time that you filed a tax return, or 2 years, within 2 years after you've paid the tax. Again, in order to claim a refund, you will need to do it within 3 years of the date that you filed the tax return, or within 2 years of the time period that you paid the tax. Now, for those of you who have returns that you've not filed and the statute of limitations period has expired on collecting your refund, in this case, you're SOL. And I am referring to the other SOL. You have forfeited that refund amount, and there is absolutely nothing that you can do about it. So if you're due a refund, again, you want to make sure that you claim that refund within that 3-year period after you file the tax return, or the 2-year period after you've paid the tax. Now again, there's an exception. You can claim a refund within a 7-year period if it's due to a bad debt or a loss on a security. Again, you have 7 years to claim a refund if it's due to a bad debt or due to the loss on a security. But for the most part, in general, it is within the 3-year period after you file the tax return, or 2 years within a 2-year period after the tax has been paid. So for more information regarding the statute of limitations on tax debt, you can refer to the IRS website at www.irs.gov. There are also various links on the internet that you can refer to in regards to the statute of limitations. And again, for the state statute of limitations, you would have to check your state code to find out what that information is. And you might be able to find some information on the internet as well regarding your particular state and the statute of limitations on the tax debt. I also have a website that you can purchase and audio download regarding statute of limitations. My website address is www.audiotaxhelp.com. Again, that's www.audiotaxhelp.com. AUDIOTAXHELP.com. Feel free to take a look at my site to see what services I offer and what tax products I offer that can possibly help to make your life a little less taxing.